What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Game Dev Unchained, the #1 game development podcast about game development and the lifestyle thereof. I'm your host, Brandon Bam, and with me, a special colleague, friend from a long time, for a long time, Drew Smith. How you doing, Drew?
Doing all right. How are you?
Good, man. So this is part of the podcast where I introduce our guest, which is yourself, to introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers out there about where you've been, where you're at, where you're heading. Just a little recap before we get into the meat of the episode.
All right. Let's see where to start. I feel like I like a one-word answer. Like what I have in all my business cards that I have for at least 10 years is like semi-functional human.
Yeah.
I think that should basically say everything it needs to know.
That works.
I've been to a lot of different places, worked several places in games. Career's now been almost 20 years, 19 years. Started at Take-Two and was there for a while in New York, and then came out to Cali to work at 2K, and that's where I think we originally met, right?
Yep.
And that was 2010. And then I was a producer there, worked on stuff like Topspin for the Bureau, XCOM Declassified, and Bioshock 2, Minerva's Den, along with a bunch of other things that I was doing. Left, went to Bungie, worked there on Destiny, pre-announce. There's some interesting stories about being at the Sony event where it was announced. And then heading to, through that game, worked on stuff all the way through Destiny 2, went to Google for a bit, went to Twitch for a little bit, and then started my own studio. And that's kind of a brief history of time, as they say.
Well, Drew, we do share, like you said, we met at 2K. I'll start with this. My impression of you when we first met is like, man, this guy's a big deal. It's like, I just remember you're always having to present, at least representing the corporate side, because that office was unique because we had the visual concept guys at the top. We have the Marin team, which is a whole separate team. Everyone's working on their own thing. And then we had corporate publishing, your guys' team there. Everyone was in one building. And every time you came down to talk to us, I was like, oh, corporate's talking to us about something. So that to me was like, man, this guy's doing well ever since then, for sure.
It's funny because like I would think of and like how I view myself, and this is like years on, right? I think that you didn't ask this question, but I'm kind of leading into this.
Yeah.
When I started in games, like all I wanted to do was make games, but I didn't really know how to do that. And like I got the job at Take-Two just through random like LinkedIn stalking. Stalking's not even the right word. I was just messaging people and being like, hey, I really want to talk to you about like someone at Xbox, someone at Vivendi back in the day. Like
just hustling,
and Take-Two was like, this is not a joke. I'm not making this up. Like I literally offered to clean toilets. Mm-hmm. I said, I'll come in and clean the bathrooms one day a week or whatever. Like I'm in the city now for school. And they ended up coming back and like offering me to interview for a job in channel marketing at that time.
That's awesome.
I didn't know anything about channel marketing. I didn't have any idea what that was. I was like, sounds great. Yeah. Like it's not making games, but I'll do it. Yeah. But yeah, it's funny because you're talking about that and like, it was a slow transition, like, and one I'm very thankful for because people like saw like, hey, he really should be making stuff.
It's great because I think back then there wasn't ever a direct channel to get into games, right? It was still kind of hazy, even from a person that went through a game art school, right, at that time, and then did the application process and got in somehow. It wasn't even like a sure path, really. There wasn't any. It wasn't like it was Noman and there was like a lot of people on faculty that had like inside track. You were still pretty much on your own after you graduated. Not a lot of schools were well connected at that time. Totally. And so it's kind of nostalgic to kind of hear that type of story, how you literally just through passion, through hustling, through infinite trial and error, that you still got in. And I think that's the great thing about just the idea of having such a big office like that and everybody coming in and just being a part of it. And I keep going back to this. I feel like remote wise, it's harder to do nowadays, I think.
I agree.
Um, and I'm sure, I'm assuming you're still in the Bay, right? In the Bay Area, out of all the locations, especially in California, the Bay Area definitely took a, like a whole 180 with this
Yeah.
remote. Like it used to be so. I mean, that's where everyone was moving to go to
Yeah.
get jobs, and now everyone's doing it at home. Would love to kind of hear like just quickly your experience that transition during that time of what you saw, maybe what yourself were going through about
You
how the
think
Bay Area kind of changed in a big way.
Oh man, and it's so it's interesting because I have the perspective I have on the Bay Area specifically is I've I call them tours. I've done 3 tours here.
Hmm.
The first one I moved in 2010, which was the 2K like time frame,
Yeah,
and then I was here through not all the way through 2012 because I had moved to Seattle for Bungie at that point.
yeah,
I moved back here in January of 15,
yeah,
so 10 years ago, which is
yeah,
nuts. For that was for Google, and then was here until 2020, and then during pandemic, like the pandemic changed a lot, right?
yeah.
Like for as everyone knows, um, in 2020, like toward I think it was November of that year, we moved to Brooklyn. And part of that was like, we're having a kid. We wanted to be near family because family couldn't travel because COVID was so bad. And my
Yeah.
parents were old and her parents were old. And so we were back out there for a year. And then we were in LA for 2 years because to be close to her family. And then we moved back here at the end of 2023. So we had this like 3 year gap.
Yeah.
So when we left, SF became very strange just in that 1 year. I mean, everywhere it did because of COVID, right? Like everything was closed. It was like you were afraid to walk near people. I don't know,
Yeah.
afraid is the right word, but you weren't walking near people.
Yeah.
Coffee shops like had like the door front service, right? Where, like the counter was at the door and you could
Yeah.
get coffee at the door.
Yeah.
I think the thing that like I've noticed city wise before we get into like maybe companies,
Mhm.
because that's a little different because of starting a studio and us being remote first, is that like a lot of the stuff's gone. Like a lot of the stuff that was here is gone in the city. Like it feels like it's changed in some real ways.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about downtown. Like we live we're like on the border of Castro and Mission, like near Dolores Park, if that matters to anybody.
Yeah.
But I've lived in this area for a long time. These 2 of those tours I've spent there, and it's like it's not a different place, but it is a different place, like the city itself. I think in terms of working, I mean, you talk about 2K and in like the 2010 time, like it's a very different company back then. It's much smaller. Everything's contained in one building. Obviously, there's like Marin and having worked at Marin like together, right? But even before that, there's obviously Firaxis and there's Visual Concepts was upstairs and other companies were out, spread about 2K Check and stuff like that. But I the even though I'm at a studio now where it's separate from anything and we're remote, like I said, you miss a lot. Like you meet people that way. I'm not arguing for people to go back to work or not to go back to work. I think that's the decision of whatever company, but I do believe in game development specifically dev, right? More than anything else. That there's some community that forms that way. It's like there are moments that can come up like when you're in dev that because you're around other people that are working, and you can have these like conversations really quickly that are lost a little bit. Like I don't know if I would know the people I know now if I were coming up at this moment and remote. If that does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think that's changed. Like that's a different it's a different world.
Right. And well, I kind of want to transition to this because there's not a lot of. I'm very used to be on the developer side. I
Yeah.
think most general experience about understanding the development side, and then there's the corporate side, right?
Yeah.
And it is the show The Office, right? You get a little glimpse of the
Yeah.
slight differences of the two groups.
Yeah.
Um, just out of curiosity, right? And you were kind of mentioning, being part of the pre-Destiny announcement, right? What are the key differences being on the corporate side during development, after development, just your whole experience, your perspective? I mean, I'm sure you
Yeah,
had a lot of retrospective experience of like, oh, okay, this is all I know, and now stepping back from it all is like, oh, okay, I can see what the developers are talking about. We'd love
for
to have
sure.
some insight into that.
It's
Some more.
interesting because yeah, I feel really fortunate to have been able to start in channel marketing. Like, even though before I said I didn't know what it was, I didn't know any, I feel fortunate because it gave me a perspective that I would not have had otherwise. And it's like what you're talking about. And then flowing through that into publishing, into dev, and then to like BD, and then back to dev. Right. It's like I've been like run the gamut of like like game development from every aspect.
Yep.
I I think that when you're in the corporate side, and if you haven't been on the dev side, a lot of it is, and I think this goes both ways. I think that dev has the same view of corporate that corporate may have a view of dev. Not exactly, but I mean, there's misunderstanding.
Yeah.
There's a genuine like lack of knowledge around maybe what you're asking for. Like, I'll give you something really simple. So there's a lesson that I learned really early. I would be managing like, I say uninteresting because it's not interesting in terms of game development, but it's a necessity. It's like, okay, there's a lot of retail marketing that had to happen, and this is where I started. And you have to get assets to give to the retailers, and every retailer wants their own special, assets, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. That means you're asking publishing, right? Publishing marketing for like, hey, I need screenshots. I need like an original screenshots for, I don't know, GTA or like, Bioshock or whatever, right? At least those games. And what you don't know at that time, in your mind, you're like, why is this difficult? And one, it's not like you're being, I think it's more of a genuine question than like being angry. You're like, why is this so hard? Like, can we just get screenshots?
Yeah.
What you don't realize is that when you're asking that of the marketing team, the publishing side, it's not even getting to dev yet, right? Yeah. But what has to happen is the dev or the publishing producer then needs to ask, like, the marketing people ask the publishing producer to get screenshots from the dev side, and the dev team has to approve, like someone on the team, creative director, studio, whoever it is, right? Whatever that person, wherever that flows to, that person has to approve those screenshots. And if you're dealing with anyone, like on any project, basically, like they care about how that's presented. Yeah. And that means that it's not just going in and like capturing one screenshot. It's like, here's 500 screenshots and we'll approve one of them. Yeah. Right. So it's a lot of work. And it's a lot of work getting stacked onto someone who has a million other things to do. Yeah. When I'll tell an ancillary story in a second, but I think that kind of basic level thing, like not understanding what a request means, is a common misunderstanding. I think that happens between the groups. Yeah. And I would say like it can lead to like frustration across the board. I could say like as a flip, like when working as a producer on the dev side, like if I was getting asked for something that wasn't about making the game better, I'd be like, yeah, get out of here. I'm like, no, like we're not doing that. I'm like, are you paying me? Like me, not me personally. Like, are you giving us money? Are you developing this on your own? No, we're not doing that. That's crazy. Why would I do that? Yeah, like this game needs to be good.
I know it's always like a back and forth challenge.
And I would say that just in that same thing, like the flip of that is that on the dev side, maybe that individual screenshot isn't meaningful. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But the overall aggregate of like what marketing's doing is important, and that's not always seen, right? Like there's various teams for dev, for marketing, and various skill levels for all those things. But at the end of the day, like especially now, if you don't have good publicity, then you're in a scenario where it's not great. My doorbell's ringing.
No
If you
worries.
hear that in the background,
Slightly. Yeah, no
yeah.
worries.
Is it okay?
Yeah, yeah, it's fine. Um, I will say this, it's kind of popular nowadays to kind of downplay AAA development, like being too slow,
Sure.
racked with problems, this and that. Being part of those teams myself, and you have as well, of course, multiple times. It is nothing like it. It's exciting
Yeah.
for the many reasons that we may or may not like, right? There's so many people on it. There's so many people that are
Yeah.
working on different things to ensure its success, right? So many
Yeah.
moving parts that in a lot of times you're not even aware that it's happening, right? You can't know everything in such a big
Yeah.
project like that. Uh, and uh, and when it releases, when it's out in the public, you're guaranteed that everyone's going to hear about it. Whether they pick it up or not, everybody
Yeah.
will hear about it, and
Yeah.
everybody will have an opinion on it. And that's something is super exciting that smaller projects don't have that luxury. They it's a lot of hoping and praying, and it's a lot about bootstrapping, and it's a lot about building it from the ground up. Um, been in being in the industry for so long, being in various different being a part of various different levels of projects, would love to kind of hear your experience and what you see so far with everything, because now it's all about, yes, big projects, but the small projects are getting kind of bigger now too, and it's a interesting time to compare
It,
and see what's up. Yeah.
there's kind of like I think it's funny because I'm looking off to the side and there's a poster, there's a Bastion poster over here that's signed by that team from like, you know, 2010, whenever Greg left 2K and went over there and I was at PAX. I'm like, and I think about, the reason I say that, the only reason I bring this up is because there is a team that has, from that moment, with 7 people on Bastion, and I think, I don't know, it's like in the low 20s now,
Yeah.
16 years later.
Yeah.
Like they have never maybe bitten off more than they can chew in terms of cost and what they're making. But the reason I say that is because like everyone knows, if you're a game developer, you know about feature creep.
Yep.
Right. And that's just all that is. Like the simplest way to talk about that for everybody, right, is like it's just the desire to make the game better. Like really, it's like, oh my God, it's someone watched a movie the other night or someone played a game and they're like, it'd be amazing if that guy could triple jump and backflip off the
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah.
And someone's like, that's a good idea. And like, we should do that. And you're like, no.
Yeah.
Like, no, maybe you should. But I think that the reason like the smaller games are getting bigger, right? Like they cost more and it's more difficult. We'll come back to the marketing in a second, but or like the ability of AAA and like where it is now is. I was thinking about this yesterday. We were talking about the game we're working on, and we were talking about doing it like episodically. And I immediately started thinking of like all the episodic games that have ever existed. Half-Life, Sin, I think was another episodic game that like had one episode and didn't make it. Then you could think about Telltale, like they did it. And I was like, why? Not always true, but why does episodic not work generally?
Mm-hmm.
And if I think about it, just from like my own desire to like make this game and then make another game or like other parts, it's like because every single time you're going to deal with feature creep because you're going to want to do better than the last one, and that means something, right? It means like you're gonna like what that means is it's unknowable, but it's like, oh well, we're not going to make the exact same game because who's going to go back and play the exact same game? Right? Like you need to add new features. There need to be new verbs in that game. So I think that that's probably a cause for why, like I'm not calling anybody out in terms of like any issues, but it's like just where they are, right? It's like why like there's not a Hollow Knight 2 now, or like, I don't think the follow-up to Cuphead's come out. It's like, you'd think that like, oh, they could turn this around and make a new one. No, they have to figure out what new things they're going to do and why this is better, why they're one-upping from the last one.
Right.
But for the AAA side, I would say like it's there's also the cost aspect, which has gotten really, really big over the years. This isn't exactly what you were saying, but like
Mhm.
that's a I think you're right. Like generally people have a good time. Any game project gets done is a miracle.
Yeah.
Like I think everyone that's worked in games and like worked on games like says that because you go through it and you're like, for the longest time with like Destiny, it was not clear. Maybe it was clear to some people, but I think on the team, like they're like, what are we making? You're like kind of confused about it in some way, but then it comes together. And like the end, like that like final like crunch time, and I don't mean it in terms of crunch work. I just mean it in terms of like that final bit is like when all the pieces start to fall into place, and then the picture like that's blurry for so long starts to become really focused, and you're like, oh, this is it. Like now I see what we're doing, or now we see what we're doing. But yeah, I think AAA like just it's I mean, there's so many things going on with that industry right now that make it difficult and have made it like prohibitively expensive and um, while fun to work in, also difficult to work in because of company bets and trends and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. This definitely it is a miracle every time a game project finishes, or ships, right? And it is definitely anti-creative to finish things.
Right,
And it,
totally.
yeah, and it's exactly what we need as creatives, like a date, right? Like you said,
Mhm.
it's so easy. I've realized over the years that creative teams are largely pretty unfocused when it comes to everybody just wants to keep playing,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
adding things, right?
yeah,
And then we always look at producers as a bad guy.
yeah.
It's like, why you want us to stop playing? Uh, because
Like,
at
because
the
we
end,
need to
it's the
start
entertainment.
selling.
Yeah, I know we got to start selling. It's
Right,
an
we gotta get
entertainment
this thing
product.
out.
We're making something,
Yeah,
and we have a budget and everything, right? So it is still what I find too. Maybe we can talk more about this. Like, what's the we're still having a lot of trouble with that. Like, we're if anything, we're going in the opposite direction. These games are getting longer to make, and
yeah,
budgets are ballooning,
yeah,
and the lifespan of the game developer is already short. So I do see like the as things as industry grows, as there's more and more new blood that are heads of these projects. Um, which also means the veterans are fastly leaving, right? So with games projects being long, 8 to 10 years, with the short lifespan of a game developer, there's not a lot of experienced people making these 8 to 10 year projects, right? If you really think about it, a person
yeah,
might have that opportunity in a director level maybe twice, right?
yeah,
Like how many times can they really do it to say that they've done this a long time? And
yeah,
I think part of that is attributing to a lot of AAA failures lately. It's just either
totally.
very buggy or just overall impression of AAA hasn't been good in the eyes of gamers. Would love to hear your opinions on that. What you're kind of feeling as a fan, but as also as a developer, what's going on? Where I just don't feel like there's a lot of AAA games like hitting that high mark consistently. Like
Yeah,
this past year, and I'll just close it up on what I'm asking here is like Wukong was
yeah,
amazing. It had a crazy myth, but gameplay many times it's like we've seen this type of. It's just very polished, right? It's nothing like
yeah,
revolutionary,
yeah,
but the fact that it's very polished is impressive enough. And
yeah.
that I was like, all right, that's a really low bar for a AAA game. It's just a
Right,
polished game,
totally.
right? And that's enough to be like game of the year, right? Um, but yeah, we see that once in a while, and not as much as before anymore. Would love to hear your idea that like Ubisoft right now, like for example, strings of
Yeah,
bad games. It's just
yep.
string of bugs. They have one more game. It feels like I keep seeing headlines of like the brink of collapse, and that's a huge
A huge company.
company, right?
That's
Uh,
right.
yeah, would love to hear your opinions.
It's I'm writing a couple notes to myself to like remember what I
Yeah,
wanted.
yeah. I
Like,
just rambled a bit, but
no, it's
makes
okay.
sense.
But first thing I'll say is like, in talking about I think one of the other things that I have that I appreciate is I've always said this, but it's coming more into focus over the years, which is like I'm probably like 50% science, 50% creative, right? It's like I believe I'm very strongly torn between those things, or maybe it's 51-49, depending on the situation, right? Because something has to take precedent. But I think to your point, like in making games, before we talk about the AAA games and like and failures and Ubisoft and like what's going on, but look, I the most exciting times in game development, in my opinion, are like concept and pre-production. Because concept and pre-production are like we are throwing spaghetti against the wall. like like every crazy like we sit around and we're like, you know what? Again, what if we could do the triple jump with the backflip off the wall? Can we even do that? Let's prototype it and find out.
Yeah.
Ooh, it works. It's not fun. We're not there yet because that's pre-production, but we can at least show that this is a plausible system that we can have in the game. I don't know that like people outside of game development realize or really think about like what games are, because it's really just like there's a lot more than just this, but it's a series of systems, right?
Yeah.
And like whatever, however, there's rules, and you're a player, and you're interacting within that rule set, and that rule set is the game.
Yeah.
Then the art is creating the world that you're in. The narrative is driving you forward in some way. There's varying levels of these things, right? There's not like a narrative in Balatro, but and the music, like every other aspect of it, the effects, like they are all in service of design, right? Because design is what you're doing, and you need to be excited about doing that, or whatever the motivation you want the player to have.
Yeah.
I think like the AAA space, my take on it is we've been through Destiny was kind of in some ways the progenitor of this. It started the kind of the live service game model. Obviously there was WoW before that, right? There were MMOs, there were other games that MUDs back in the late 90s. So there's lots of games that were doing Ultima Online, right?
Yeah.
Games that have been doing something like this, but it kind of shifted the industry. There were some other forces at play too, but this is one of them.
Yeah.
To start chasing this, hey, games are risky. They cost a lot of money to make in the AAA space. So let's just make a game that someone plays indefinitely. Minecraft was another big part of this, even though, that was an indie game with one person originally.
Yeah.
That put a lot of pressure on public companies, meaning the game companies, to make like recurring revenue in a predictable way. I think what has happened because of that, though, is we've created a space where there's too much competition.
Yeah.
There is also the rise of everything else trying to dominate all of everybody's time, whether it's your phone or your TV, outside of games, or just everything is like a time vampire. It's like I want you to sit here and I want to capture all of your attention.
Yeah.
So that's had a big impact on games as well, especially when the games are trying to do that, right? Like when everything's trying to do that. You then are getting to a space where you have like Ubisoft, right? And Ubisoft, I actually wrote about this last week, 2 weeks ago, something like that. I remember a few weeks ago, where it was like Ubisoft was really innovative for a long time. Like it really did really interesting stuff. I would say through even probably like to Black Flag. It was fading at that point, but Black Flag was a really cool game that had Assassin's Creed in it for some reason, right? But it was like, this is a really fun game. Like the riding on the waves with your pirate ship and like getting it in like storms and having the crew sing, like that's chef's kiss design, because it's something you didn't know you wanted, but you're like, man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And they could go back to like Rainbow Six and like Ghost Recon and Splinter Cell and like all the Tom Clancy stuff. Obviously, there was a lot of interesting things happening there, and it felt like they were pushing the envelope in certain ways.
Right.
And I think when we got to maybe The Division and what's the game that I can never remember? What's the game where you're like a hacker?
Watch Dogs.
Thank you. I can never remember the name of that game. But you get to like Watch Dogs and stuff. They started to just adopt this, like Far Cry is another great one that they did some great.
Far Cry.
But it just started. Yeah, but they just turned into like, oh, everything's just going to be an open world and
Yeah,
everything's going to be kind of the same. And we want to make everything for everybody instead of something for someone.
right.
And I think that that was a big problem. And then they were chasing trends, right?
Yeah,
Then they were like making a bunch of live service stuff. And outside of maybe Rainbow Six Siege, that didn't really work out very well.
yeah.
You know, the only other blip I think that was received well and like people liked was For Honor.
All right, right, right,
That
right.
was kind of, I mean, that was, you know, the, what was it? Deadliest Warrior, the game,
Yeah,
kind of, or
yeah,
whatever it
yeah,
is. Like someone's like, this is a great show. We should make a game out of
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, but I think that like that's infected a lot of the industry, and it was always there, right? Like when Call of Duty got really big after Modern Warfare. I mean, it had been big before, but Modern Warfare really took off. Like everybody wanted multiplayer, and you and I know this. Like on Bioshock 2,
Yeah,
there was a push. Like, and, you know, one of our friends led that team,
yeah.
who's an amazing designer and a great person, but the
That's
multi
weird.
like Bioshock didn't need multiplayer. Like
Mhm.
nobody bought Bioshock saying this is a great story. You know, it would make it better if we could have multiplayer.
Right.
It's like no, but you know, the company wanted to make sure that it had multiplayer because it wanted the back of the box
Yeah.
bullet point to try to sell more units. So it's not like a new thing. It's just that because the business model has changed in some ways, not always, not fluidly or fluently, but that has caused a shift in, I think, how the AAA gaming exists. I'll say the second thing here, which is you can look at a game like, I mean, two games over the past couple of years. There's been several actually really good. You said Wukong. I didn't actually play Wukong, but I know it's good. But you're talking about it. It's just like, hey, this is very polished. But a game like Baldur's Gate 3 last year, 2023, and like Astrobot in 2024. I mean, Larian's a big studio. They did something that most like that AAA outside of like an independent studio wouldn't do, which is go into early access. But it allowed them to make the best CRPG ever made, which is a crazy thing to say when you think back to like Planescape Torment or the original Baldur's Gates or Neverwinter Nights or whatever, right? Like they and the systems to go back to that they created in that game, like I mean, it's there's no truer representation of D&D outside of playing the actual game than that game. Like anything you think of, you can do. I have no idea how to design that game,
Yeah.
like through early access.
Right, right, right.
Then you go to another game like Astrobot, and Astrobot is, I mean, it's one of the few games I've actually platinumed.
Mhm.
It's a such a delight to play that game. It's so fun.
Yeah.
And it's just like it was like 60 people, I think was the team. It's like some leftovers maybe from Japan team,
Yeah.
but Team Asobi, right, in Japan. But man, like what a great game. They took something that should not have seemed like it would work and made it work.
Yeah.
So I to kind of summarize this, I think that AAA has gotten very complacent and very worried about, you know, having to make a ton of money on every game, which I understand from the pressure of like Wall Street, but it doesn't make for good games. They're not making the Splinter Cells anymore. They're not taking the chance to try like Assassin's Creed or something, you know, the beginning of that,
Yeah.
when that came out.
Yeah, it's definitely playing too safe and stale right now. And
Yeah.
I mean, our industry has always a new trend of always kind of birthed itself in the indie community, you know, smaller teams, and then the bigger studios kind of copy that and run away with it a lot of times. And I'm seeing that happening soon again. Like, you know, we have the battle royales that are still they're fizzling out, and you know,
Yep.
like I this past year alone, I've heard so many just war zone fatigue.
Yeah.
Um, I know there's the other giants as well, like Apex Legends and Fortnite, of course, right? But they are fading. Like it does feel like not a lot of people are playing those games as much. I kind of just peek at what my kid's doing. He's a teenager now, and
Yeah.
you know he's all about Marvel Rivals, and that's what everyone's playing right now.
Yep.
But even it's the payload. It's Overwatch 2, right? With the new skins.
Yeah.
It's like it's not new. It's somehow because of Marvel licensing. It's exciting again, right? And that's not it's not so unfamiliar for trends to be cyclical, right?
Totally.
It does take a lot of resource to come up with something actually new. Uh,
Absolutely.
that's why I was so excited about Fall Guys when during the pandemic. It was
Yeah.
actually very different, very fun. It was, I mean, the timing of it was perfect. Everybody was in their home and they wanted to connect, and it's a fun way to laugh with your friends. So it really hit the mark. But that was a trend that I was happily, behind because it was a small team, became a major hit,
Yeah.
and everybody I knew was playing and laughing about it or and whatever. And then Epic bought it, and in my opinion, killed it. Like I know they're trying to do something with UEFN with it. And, all right, yeah, I was like, I don't care. It just feels tainted. Yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
feels because a large part of that team got laid off as part of the acquisition, which made it even sadder. Right,
Right.
they kept a few, but they just integrated into their Fortnite mega system, which
Yeah.
I have a lot of opinions on that.
I can see that.
I'll just say this, right? I'll just say this, and Drew, I don't want you to say things that will hurt your chances, but I'll say it, right? I'll say this. I say this many times, right? I am not okay with the UEFN ecosystem that they're
Mm,
doing. Like, it feels like an open platform for ripping off games and not
mm,
paying people for it.
mm.
And I see so many branded licensing, like people just straight up put Spider-Man on there. Like I know, like a recent example is body cam. Someone took like realistic environment and did that like police cam, right? That
Yeah.
became a trend and it went viral, when the team announced it, but then it was quickly copied, on Steam. Someone else did it and someone thought that was the game, but it wasn't because they released it earlier than the original developers. But someone else just duped that in UEFN and that got popular. I was like, dude, this is like the early days of the App Store on the iOS, right? People,
Yeah.
as soon as Flappy Birds got popular, someone, there was 1,000 copies of it. And I was like, I don't think this is good for games. Already have an IP problem where
Yeah.
everybody just feels like there are no repercussions for copying game ideas,
Yeah.
which is insane, right? I feel like we're still unprotected. But for someone like Epic to promote that in a way, right? And not have any repercussion, not taking down like Squid Games, right? Squid Game season 2 came out. And UEFN, there's like this popular Squid Game copy. It just looks exactly like sponsored by Netflix, doing fine. Nothing
Yeah.
happening. I was like, there's no policing. I was like, I don't think this can't be the future. This is bad. So as soon as I make something original on Steam, I'll see it on UEFN, see no backlash. I don't know about that, man.
I mean, that's an interesting topic. And yeah, it's, I'll take a devil's advocate take on that, not because I agree or disagree with it, just because that's kind of the person I am. But number one, imitation is the biggest form of flattery.
Yeah.
Like if you're getting people imitating, that means you've done something right because people are like, oh, we really like this.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, it's definitely frustrating if you come up with an idea and you put that out and you put a lot of time and effort because it's difficult to make games. Like it's and that's another thing that I think people don't realize outside of the industry. They think it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
And if you go into like, I haven't used UEFN, so I can't speak to the UEFN, but let's say you go into that or Roblox or something and you create a copy of something. Okay, you can do that because you can take the systems and build around to like make whatever you want, but you're not like hatching that thing, right? You're not like putting all the care and time into it to figure out all the things that you have to make that work. I'm also not suggesting that creators don't have to do any work that are doing that stuff, right? They do, but it's the understanding why this thing works and this thing doesn't work and how those systems fit together. I have a similar take on like, and I think this is another thing I wrote about recently, like, but on AI, where it's like, I don't see AI replacing like game development as a thing. Like when I say like replacing game developers, because at the end of the day, like what drives development and what makes it really interesting is creativity. And what creativity is, right, is taking two disparate ideas and combining them in a way people haven't seen before, or you haven't seen before, right? Someone in the world, there's a lot of people in the world. someone might have thought of it.
Yeah.
But basically, like, I don't know. But that's what drives game development, right? You need that, and you to make everything work together. You need people to understand like how these things work. Like it's that there was a great video a long time ago. I don't know, with like Miyamoto and maybe it was Iwata. Like I might even be wrong about this. It might have been two other people, but I think it was Miyamoto at least. And they were talking about Mario, 8-bit Mario, right? And they were saying like, they had made, I don't know if it was I think it was Donkey Kong. Like maybe they were talking about this, but if you run and jump in Donkey Kong, you just land and stop.
Yeah.
And one of the things they added to Super Mario Brothers was if you run and stop, Mario slides, right? He slides like just a little bit, but that like tiny decision in that game, which is like Mario now, right? It's not a complex game. Like there's not a lot of, I would say like like character evolution over the course of the game. You could do basically the same things. You can shoot fireballs, you can jump, you can land on things, right? And that's the levels get harder, but your actions are basically the same. But that little addition from the mind of Miyamoto at the time, or whichever designer had thought about it, was brilliant because it gives Mario weight. Like it makes him feel like makes motion feel important. And I don't see, like, if you're not thinking like deeply about like how you're making games, it's hard to think about like those are the moments where it becomes different. It's not just the same, right? And if you talk again, I didn't play Wukong, and I'm not trashing Wukong at all. But if you say like, oh, I've seen this before, and it's very polished, but you need that like extra step, like in you want to take what people are familiar with. That can be a shooter, it can be a platformer, it can be whatever type of game, a puzzle game, whatever it is, and you want to push it that extra like 10 to 20%, someplace that people aren't expecting. And it's those little decisions that I think are really the most crucial and the most interesting. And they come out of like going back to like that concept and to generally like that concept and pre-production time, right? Because that's where you're like spending the time to really look at this stuff. I know it's a little off of UEFN, but what I'm really talking about here is like, that's what you spend time when you're creating a game or a game genre or adjusting a game genre. Like those are the decisions that people are making. And yeah, it gets copied. It ends up somewhere else, but ideally like the identifiable things are always there for the game you're working on, because it's those like, I don't know that people notice those things, right? Like you really have to be focused to notice, like it takes 2 seconds to swing a sword in most swords, like a light sword in a Dark Souls game, but it takes 4 seconds to swing a heavy sword. Mm-hmm. That matters. Like that time matters because that has a major impact on how you play the game, right? And what your actions are in the game. It's like it was 4 seconds to load up a sniper rifle in Team Fortress. I knew this really well because I played sniper non-competitively. I played scout when I was playing competitively, but non-competitively, I would sit there and I would count because I was like, how long until my sniper rifle's ready? So I'm going to pop out, shoot, hide, count to 4, pop out, shoot again, right? Because I don't want to get hit in the meantime. But it's like, that's a decision. That's a design decision, and that matters. And like, those are the little things that make games truly great. And I think separate even like the copied stuff from like the originals. It's like a paint stroke in like a beautiful painting or something, right? It's like, oh, this is an upstroke or a downstroke. And like, you can see the way the brush like hit it's like the people that are paying attention see that and recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's such obviously we both have deep appreciation of creators and just the games, even if it's in the end not the final vision of the creator, we appreciate the effort and just seeing it through the finish line, knowing how torturous the process can be, just shipping a game. And I think my frustration is just it just goes back to like in a time like this, like I feel developers still have a hard time really banding together as a group. Like the industry is going through the craziest moment ever, and it feels extended. I think just yesterday, not just Ubisoft, but like another big company just did like a huge round of layoffs.
It was BioWare.
BioWare, right? Oh yeah, from
Yeah.
the Dragon Age group, right?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, Dragon Age. I think I saw a headline. The last of Dragon Age just did not do well at all.
Yeah.
So I think it's that team primarily being
Yeah.
impacted. Um, but even then, like, wow, man, this is nonstop. Like, how much more can we really take? Because there's a lot of people still waiting, for this to blow over, right? And
Yeah.
and I know friends, designers especially, are in UAFN just keeping busy. But then these resources are just like, well, if you have any inkling of a good idea, it's gonna be duplicated, without. And I was like, man, is that the best way to do things right now? I was just hoping that by this time we would have, we've been in the industry for so long, 2025. I was just hoping that we had like a better avenue now for developers to just create freely without fear of being replicated in such an easy way.
Yeah.
Um, but I do recognize like modding communities, all this
That's what
stuff
I was.
are,
Yeah.
yeah, like are great. This UAFN is part of the user generated created content community that is growing. I get it. Um, you know, I would even say like I'm surprised that PlayStation isn't releasing Dream on PC. Like I think that's a missed opportunity. I mean, they to me were like kind of the original. Uh, like I've seen projects come out of that that's like legitimately insane.
Yeah.
Just using a controller input to make it right. And I was like, how
Yeah.
long did this take? Um, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah. That's mind boggling, right? Sometimes you see that and you're like, how long did you spend on
yeah,
this?
just joysticks, right?
Yeah.
Um, and especially with school programs are lessening in my opinion. Like in terms of game art focus, it's actually shrinking from what I've
Mm.
seen. Because I think the heyday was 2015, maybe, where like every school had a game art program. Like I know in the Bay there was like multiple colleges that were teaching. Like I taught with at many of them, and that's not happening as much. And I would love to kind of hear because you've been around students, you've been around younger developers. Um, I feel like they're kind of being lost in the folds right now of like, well, it doesn't sound like I should graduate now. Doesn't sound like it's even worth it because going to school right now because it's still the industry itself is going through something. I know for a fact remote uh, have had an effect. Not a lot of studios are looking for juniors as much. It's just that
Yeah.
the mentorship alone is difficult. The discipline of being able to self manage at such an early stage of your career is
Yeah.
kind of is a lot to ask for someone in their early 20s, right? It's like what I know from sound like dinosaurs now from working in the office, that's senior junior relationship was kind of
Yeah.
foundational to the culture. And how can you replicate that on Zoom? So would love to kind of hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah. It's an interesting topic because one, like, I think to like, I don't know, close out maybe is the wrong term, but to kind of like at least put a pin in it for now. Um, I think I was going to bring up the mod thing because modding's always been there, right? And like that was Blizzard always allowed in the past. Like you could just go into the editor and start making, I mean, Dota, right? Dota came out of Warcraft 3, and that was just someone modding and saying, what if we just had heroes fighting each other? Tower defense, too, right? Tower defense came out of that, which nobody plays anymore, but was a genre for a little bit. Um, but I think like the question for like those created games is like, okay, a lot of people are going to take and copy and do the same thing, and it'll be okay, like, and it'll get play, and maybe someone will do a good job of it, and maybe that'll be good because maybe that's their foray into becoming like designers, artists, like engineers, whatever, right? Like those things, and really starting to get that exposure. So that's the positive side, I think. Um, I would say in terms of like, and it's a good potential like jumping off point for, let's just say, junior artists or some other place, right? It's not what you're talking about, but like they can do stuff and iterate quickly and kind of put things out, either fully fleshed out or not fleshed out, and get response right away. Um, it's different. That's very different than like the past. The modding community was existed, but was relatively small. I don't know how big the creator community is. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I would say like in terms of the kind of mentorship programs and like junior people coming in into like studios and like learning from, the more senior staff. Yeah, that's a loss. Like and the pandemic, I mean, I think it's had far-reaching effects outside of just that, like things unrelated to games, right? Like a lot of kids were home from school, which was a problem, and
Yeah.
that's affected them in certain ways, and like learning. But it's related because it's all learning, right? It's like you get that knowledge from tagging yourself to someone senior on your team or another team that's kind of looking out for you and helping you along. Doesn't happen to everybody, not always there, right? But I think the industry does itself a disservice by not, one, making sure they're bringing in fresh people.
Yeah.
Because I could think back to, like, if I go back to my start, right? Again, not in dev at that time. Like I was just a really passionate, I mean, I still am, but I was a very passionate player who had a lot of opinions, like you should,
Yeah.
but like really loved games, right? And again, still do. And someone took a chance
Yep.
and said, like, we're going to bring this person in. And I did. Like, I think I had several people that throughout Take Two, 2K, Bungie, like those companies specifically, right? Like in dev, that were great and like really were like instrumental in shaping me. I have my own opinions, as I just said, like I always have. Uh, but like I got opportunities because of that. That's the other thing. Like being in that space, being young, being in the space where you're working directly with, more senior people, like helps present opportunities to you, like opportunities to learn new things, opportunities to, in my case, not normal, I think, for the industry as a whole, but for me to switch roles multiple times, right?
Yeah.
I from going from starting in like again in like channel and like on the label side, or not like the parent company side, to then going to publishing, to then going to dev. I mean, those are pretty big shifts, but those opportunities from being in the office, from having people that were senior and having people like look out and take chances, I think have made me well rounded, right? And how I think about games, because I can look at it holistically, and I can think about like everything from like the individual systems and design, and how like the art's driving the story forward, and what the narrative is, and what the beats are, and what the beats are of the game you're making, in general, to like what does this look like on the street? Like how do we present this to people? Like what are the right ways to do this? Who's the audience? Like
Yeah.
those kinds of things. uh, I'm only saying this to think about like how someone junior can come in and get like those opportunities. So I think the industry needs to make sure that it's always bringing younger people in and taking care of them and fostering those relationships. And whether I think it just has to be a studio mandate,
Yeah.
like a studio culture,
Yeah.
to, if you're remote, to make sure that everything's inclusive. And what I mean by that is like you're asking people what they think and you're letting people talk, and to make sure that you are giving them the most opportunity you can so they can grow and learn.
Yeah.
Let them make mistakes too.
Yeah. I think it's such an important, like you said, important part of the studio culture. Yeah, it almost feels like there needs to be a mandate for a percentage of the team to be young juniors. I think our industry have been thriving because of that reason. Like we were
Yeah.
always evolving. We're relatively new compared to other industries, and uh, if anything is telling about the AAA space, it's like we're getting stale on ideas, man.
Right,
It's,
right.
yeah, and
But you look at the indie space and it's rife with like great
there's
stuff.
always
Like
new things going on. Yeah.
I just played I started playing it a couple of years ago and I won't go through the whole of this, but like and I picked it up again because I needed something to write about. Started writing about this 2 years ago. I should write about it now. But I played Inscription, and Inscription, like, it's a couple of years old now, but like that is a brilliant game. Like it presents itself as one thing, it's not that thing, it changes, it's like an escape room aspect to it. Plus it's like it looks like it's a roguelite game, but it's not really.
Mhm.
That's just kind of an illusion, and the theme changes, and like it's just a what an interesting what an interesting game to create. Or like Tactical Breach Wizards, which was like, it sounds like a name that came out of a random video game name generator.
Yeah.
Like you're like, what? You're like, but they put that game together and you're like, this is awesome. Like you took XCOM
Yeah.
and like Grim Fandango, like the humor and like in Grim Fandango, and somehow you made those things work,
Yeah.
and probably for a reasonable budget, and made a really good game.
Yeah, it's such it's part of our DNA, to always have a balance of
Yeah,
fostering young
that's right.
talent and experienced game developers to kind of finish the product. And I don't know if anyone's out there thinking about this, the long term ramification of just axing that part of the game uh, developing culture, essentially. Like we're talking about like we're in 2025, pandemic 2020. That's 5 years of
Yeah,
this. I know a lot of students that have just they're not even in line anymore or in the back of the line. Anything where we have like directors, creative directors,
right.
leads that are looking for jobs right now, right? No
Yeah,
one is considering juniors at this point,
yeah,
right? And it probably will be like the next 2 years. It feels like, as this get extended, as we're hearing Ubisoft, they're most likely going to get bought up. Obviously, they have great IPs, right? But their identity is definitely changing, and how they do things. And through any buyout, it's going to be a huge, you know, layoff. Um, I have high hopes. I've like you, when we're talking to all our friends and network, and games are always going to be around, right? This is a slump period, right?
yeah,
And there will be a rebound. So I'm just trying to like understand what that means. We're looking at 2027. It's like when things kind of get back on track.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. Like it's really hard to tell. I thought the worst. Uh, Everyone was saying survive until 2025. Well, here we are. All right. Keep hearing layoffs though. I guess my question to you is like, what advice can you give to aspiring students, to aspiring game developers, right? Just the new kids that are coming in the industry, just waiting their turn, to
Yeah.
navigate in this kind of remote only world now. It feels like.
I think there's probably a few things. One, it's like, if this is your calling,
Yeah.
like if this is what you want to do, then don't give up. Like, and that's and part of life, like, and especially being young, part of life is like it's hard. Like, and things we we may have been through, I mean, we certainly were in games for a little bit, like in like 2020, 2019, 2018, 17, maybe, whatever, in this period of where like there's just so much abundance, and it created like a false sense of confidence, I think, in everybody. Um, and like you have to have the grit and the fortitude to get through stuff like this, because this is the opposite, and it hurts me, like it hurts people that you and I both know. it's been rough. Like last year was a particularly rough year for me personally. And I'm not trying to personalize this, but I'm like, I feel it, but I'm not doing anything else. Like this is it. Like, and I don't plan to ever retire. I don't plan to stop doing it. Like I will just continue doing it for the rest of my life because I care that much about it. And I think if you feel that way coming in here, if you feel excited, like it drives you and you want to create stuff, then one, don't give up. Two, keep creating, like find ways to build stuff, find projects to work on, even if you're doing stuff for free, right? It's the mod, this is not UEFN or anything like that. I don't actually mean that, but I'm like, it is the mod community of the past. It's like the people that are just working tirelessly because it's like, hey, I got this thing. I got to get it out, right? Like I want to make it. I want to try this. It's like, keep practicing your craft. And then I would say, don't be above doing other things in games, right? There's a lot of like, it's not just maybe the job that you want. Again, like the job I took initially, which I'm very thankful for, was not what I would have, if I had my choice, if someone had come to me and said, would you like to work, in channel, which still, I don't think even exists anymore, but like, I would have been like, no. But it was an amazing experience and it helped make me a better developer at the end of the day. And I think that that's something you shouldn't lose sight of. Like if you can intern somewhere, if you can clean toilets, like just get in, just find a way. Doesn't have to be the perfect job because again, you're not, the age of abundance is not upon us in games right now. So be willing to, sacrifice to get where you want to be, because there will be ways if you're dedicated to it.
Sweet. I think that's the best way to end this hour of podcasting. I will say this. This is the end of the hour. This is the part where I shut up, hand the mic over to you, Drew, to tell the good people out there how to find you, how to further conversate with you. Take it away.
It's really funny. I was so tempted to like grab the microphone and then just be like, just start like speaking in like a baritone voice, like inside. Yeah. So I'm not huge on social media. I mostly stay off of it. However, I do write a column, like a newsletter about game development, design, or multiple topics, like in some game, break things down. That's every 2 weeks. That's on Substack. I can maybe send it to you and link to it or something like that. Same with Medium. It's also on LinkedIn. If you have questions, you can reach out to me like through LinkedIn. Anyone's free to do this. I always want to talk to people and help them because I feel like I was given that opportunity, just from being persistent back in the day. And I always want to pay that forward to others. And those are really the main ways to get in touch with me. Yeah, well, I think that's it.
All right.
You can see pictures of my kids sometimes on Instagram, but I don't.
Find his kids on Instagram, guys.
Yeah.
All the links will be in the episode description below. Thank you, Drew, for coming on, sharing your wisdom. It's great always touching base with you. I'll probably be in San Francisco for GDC, so we definitely need to like touch base.
Yeah.
But thank you. See you guys next week.